Chapter 41, Changes Happening in the Academy, 2. Clank! Clank! The sound of metal clashing together reverberated across the surroundings as individuals could be seen sparring against each other or against the puppets in the training ground. Not so far from them, in the middle area of the training ground, a lone boy was currently sheathing and unsheathing the katana in his hands. As this had been a common sight for the past 3 weeks, no one paid attention to it any longer. They just brushed it off as the guy being crazy. I can feel myself reaching the threshold to the minor realm of mastery. After spending most of my time training and attending classes, a week had passed. Before I knew it, my level of mastery of the keiki style had improved drastically. If before I could only execute the first movement once or twice, now I could do it 5 times before running out of mana. Gripping the handle of my katana tighter, I emptied my mind and focused on training. I must constantly unsheath the sword in my heart. Draw, slash, and accumulate the mana in my body that was constantly growing stronger as I trained. If I could do this 10,000 times flawlessly without any loss in movement, only then would I achieve the minimum standard required to seamlessly execute the keiki style. Soon everything around me disappeared. The scornful glances from the people around me, the loud sound of people practicing, only me and my mind. Draw the katana, slash out. Draw the katana, slash out. Draw the katana, slash out. As if I was in a trance, I didn't stop until my mana and stamina were completely spent. Taking a look at my surroundings, it was currently already dark outside. Around me, I could only see the silhouettes of a few individuals training. Ding! Wiping off the sweat that had accumulated on my forehead, I glanced at my phone, which was constantly ringing since a while ago. Turning on my phone, the first thing I saw was a large notification in red. It finally happened. Breaking news. Though Bias Church of C.B. Pharmaceuticals has been assassinated last night in his high-security apartment. Reports and investigations point the killer to be rank 37 Silent Creeper. Lightly smiling, I turned off my phone and went back to training. Talk about perfect timing. Was starting to get impatient from my slow progress. By the end of today, I could finally kiss
goodbye
to my poor life. Well, to be honest, as I will spend most of my money on potions, the luxurious life that I was dreaming of was still a long stretch away. Actually, now that I thought about it, wasn't it a bit fucked up that I was celebrating someone's death? Though I indeed made a lot of money, it was at the expense of someone's life. Thinking thus far, I slapped my cheeks. He was destined to die anyway, nothing I could do about it. I only took advantage of the inevitable. Could I have stopped it? Yes, I could've. But having been in this world for a while now, I realized that compassion was unneeded. It was every man to himself in this world. There was no need for such thing like compassion. If I wanted to be strong, I needed to become apathetic to this sort of stuff, as this probably won't be the last time a similar situation happens. Ring. 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 Who could be calling me at this hour? Noticing that someone was calling my phone, I went and picked it up. Soon a large smirk appeared on my face. Picking up the phone, I cheerfully answered. Oh my, who could this be? You, how? After a short pause, the person on the other side of the phone spoke. His voice, which was usually deep, raised a few pitches. What are you talking about? Cheekily smiling, I teased Small Snake, who was on the other side of the phone. Sigh, well, it doesn't matter. You were right, how do you wish to proceed? Hold it until tomorrow and sell it in the morning as soon the stock exchange opens at 9:30 a.m. But wouldn't it be better if we hold it for a bit longer? Well, from a normal person's point of view, yes, but well, let's just say that it's better if we don't become too greedy and play it safe. All right, I'll trust you this once. Next time you see me I bet you'll get on your feet to kiss my shoes. Sure, I'll call you later once I've settled everything. Aight. Tack. With a grin still plastered on my face, I hung up the phone. I wasn't sure why, but I really enjoyed teasing Small Snake. It's about time I headed back. Collecting my stuff, I deposited my sword back and left for my dorm. I was in a pretty good mood as I felt that I was only a few days away from reaching the minor reel of mastery of my keiki style, which would considerably boost my strength. Morning, Saturday. Ring. 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 Waking me up from my sleep was the constant ringing of my phone. Lazily stretching my arm, I tapped all over my bed until I finally felt a small rectangular object on my hand. Unlocking the phone, I answer the call. Hello? Who's this? Hearing my groggy voice, the other person on the phone paused slightly and asked. It's me, did you just wake up? Yeah. Sorry about that, but I came to tell you some good news. What good news? After removing all the fees your total profit stands at 14,673 million you. That's a lot of money. Is that seriously how a normal person reacts to having just made this much money? Well, I'm still quite sleepy so it still hasn't hit me yet, but is that all you called me for? No, there's a bigger issue at hand. What? Sitting up on my bed, I held the phone closer to my ear. Sorry, but it's not safe if I tell you on the phone as someone might tap on our conversation. Is it that serious? Yes. Hearing Small Snake's solemn voice, I let out a long breath and said. Okay, when do you plan to meet up? How about tomorrow at Epsilon Cafe in Refton Road, 10 a.m.?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see you then. Tack. Hanging up the phone, I pinched the middle of my brows for a couple of seconds before finally letting out a long sigh. This was going to be a long week. Washing up, I headed outside my dorm. Looking at my bank account that was now 14 million you heavier, a smirk appeared on my face. Was this how it felt to be rich? Not bad. Where are you headed to? Section C, please. Okay. Sitting inside a minibus, I patiently waited for the driver to start the engine. Right now I was headed to the C section of the campus, which was quite far from where I was staying. Now that I had enough money, it was about time that I finally get in contact with the person that could provide me with below-market-priced potions. I sort of dreaded this moment. Let's just say that the person I was going to interact with was very quirky? Section C? Which area? North side, please. All right, we'll arrive in 15 minutes. Starting the engine, the van soon sped off into the distance. Sighing, I looked outside of the window. These days I was sighing quite a lot. With everything that was going on, I couldn't get one moment of peace. Staring at the constantly changing scenery, my stomach slightly churned due to nervousness. What I was about to do next would either make or break me. Let's just hope everything goes well. We're here. Right on cue, the van stopped in front of a large facility. Thank you. Thanking the driver, I walked towards the facility. Large metal fences covered the facility, where enormous buildings could be seen behind them. The sheer size of the buildings caused me to gape in awe. Stop. Arriving at the entrance of the facility, 2 guards appeared before me. They were wearing black uniforms with the school insignia imprinted on their chests. They had black military hats and exuded strong pressure. I'd estimate them to be at around rank D or less, as although the pressure they exuded was strong, it wasn't to the point that made me feel overwhelmed. Handing one of the guards my student ID card, they scanned it briefly and after everything checked out, they granted me entry. Schlup. Arriving in front of the main building of Section C, two transparent retractable doors opened up. A wave of cold refreshing air coming from the AC instantly hit me. The interior of the building was very modern and slick. The most dominant color was white, and everything was decorated with a simplistic design. Arriving in front of the reception of the building, a beautiful young lady smiled at me. "How may I help you?"
I
would like to meet Melissa Hall, please." The smile of the young clerk lady instantly disappeared. What replaced it was a look of slight disgust as she coldly said, "I'm sorry, but this is a research facility, not a place where you can come as you please to court Melissa. Frankly, you're not the first one that has tried this, and you probably won't be the last one, and let me be honest with you. You're not qualified." Being berated by the young clerk lady, my eye twitched a couple of times. How did it turn out like this? I am not here to court her. Hearing what I said, the young lady smirked and proceeded to cross her arms. "Oh. So what are you here for?" She didn't believe me at all. "I'm actually her classmate and I have a business proposition for her." Oh wow. This is the third person that has used this excuse. Hearing her sarcastic voice, veins started bulging from my forehead. Taking a deep breath to calm myself down, I said, "Pho, can you just relay it to her? If she denies me, I'll just leave." Fine." Laughing lightly, the young clerk lady picked up the phone on the counter and dialed a number. "What's your name?" "Rendover." "All right. Hello." Answering the call, a crisp and pleasant voice entered the young girl's ear. "Hey, Melissa, it's me, Rosie." "Rosie from reception." "Yes. How can I help you?" "I got someone here that insists on meeting you." "Why did you call me for this? You know that I don't care about this sort of stuff." "Just send him out." Covering the speaker of the phone, Rosie leaned forwards and smiled triumphantly at me. "You heard her." Rolling my eyes, I said, "Just tell her I have something important to tell her." "He says he's got something important to say." "Don't care, if that's all, I'll hang up. By the way, what is the name of the student that is trying to meet me?" If I don't remember wrong, it's something along the lines of Bendover? Multiple veins popped on my forehead as I tried my best not to assault her. Seeing my reaction, Rosie stuck her tongue out and said, "Ops, I made a mistake, I meant Rendover." "Let him in." "See, she doesn't want to, eh? Did I hear wrongly?" "No, let him in." "Tack." Before Rosie could finish speaking, Melissa hung up the phone, leaving her there dumbfoundedly staring at her phone. What's going on? Doesn't Melissa usually detest interacting with people? A million questions entered her mind as she stood rooted on her spot. Well, look at how the roles have reversed, Miss Rosie." Smirking, I looked at Rosie, who seemed to be lost in her own world. What did you do?" Pointing at me, Rosie looked at me as if I performed some sort of witchcraft. "Nothing really. Hey, why are you backing away from me?" As I was speaking, I noticed Rosie backing away from me. Almost as if she was scared of me. Wait, don't tell me she really believes I did something to Melissa? Cough, nothing really, just getting your pass. Awkwardly coughing, Rosie quickly handed me a card and shooed me away. Looking back at the reception strangely, I shook my head and made my way towards Melissa's lab. I couldn't be bothered to fix this misunderstanding. Fortunately, there was a mini GPS map on the card that Rosie gave me, preventing me from getting lost. Soon I was in front of a large metal door. Knock. Knocking once, I nervously waited for the door to open. To be honest, I wasn't expecting to be let through this easily. I was prepared to spill some of my secrets and hook her into meeting me, but before I could even take out one of my trump cards, Melissa allowed me to meet her. Something was fishy. Chapter 42, Changes Happening in the Academy, 3. Sitting down on a large white table, I nervously drank the cup of water in front of me. If I said I wasn't nervous at the moment, that would be a lie. In fact, my back was drenched in sweat. That was because sitting in front of me was Melissa Hall, one of the main protagonists. Wearing the azure blue uniform provided by the Academy, Melissa sat down in front of me. She was currently elegantly drinking the hot tea that was provided by a servant standing behind her. Which, by the way, was glaring in my direction. Taking a quick look at her, one word came into my mind. Beautiful. She had smooth and milky skin that did not have any flaws. Most notably, her most dazzling feature was her pair of large, enchanting light blue eyes that were further emphasized by her thinly framed glasses. As she sat in front of me, a cold and arrogant aura expanded from her graceful body, making it seem as if anything was beneath her. What are you staring so absent-mindedly at? Waking me up from my stupor was Melissa's annoyed voice as she put her teacup down. Had I known you were mentally challenged, I wouldn't have bothered meeting you. Feeling a slight tap on her shoulder, Melissa's eyes slightly twitched. Oh my, it seems like my tongue has slipped. Please find it within your heart to forgive this pitiful lady. TCH. Clicking her tongue, Melissa slightly glared at her servant behind her. Seeing that he remained unfazed, crossing her arms and legs, she then proceeded to look at me. When most guys lay their eyes upon me, they shower me with praises and tell me how my beauty is unmatched throughout the whole academy. At least it seems you're not one of those corny guys. Don't worry, if you just state your purpose and leave right after, I might make a slight effort in remembering your name. Yup, this prickly personality. It was definitely her, all right. This was exactly why I tried my best to avoid her. If not for the fact that she was the only one that could provide me with cheap high-quality potions, I would have never for the love of God even have bothered talking to her. But if you're here looking for a chance to date me, then you might as well pack up your stuff and leave. I don't talk to the delusional. No, thank you. Stopping her right before she could continue speaking any further abuse, I went straight to the point. I'm here to make a deal. Oh. A deal? Is this your roundabout way of asking me for a date? It's a business proposition. Though she was skeptical, Melissa paused and allowed me to speak. Go on. I would like Melissa Halcock. Before I could finish my sentence, a strong pressure started emanating from Melissa as her sharp eyes looked down on me. Because of how sudden this was, I was caught off guard. Raising my hand up, I said, "Let me finish. Watch your words carefully. I would like for you, Melissa Hall, to sell me the potions that you've made." Oh. Carefully scrutinizing me up and down, she shook her head in disappointment. The only reason I came here was because you slightly interested me. I mean, you were the guy that came up with the mana poisoning theory. Thank you. Funnily enough, I was also doing similar research, too bad I was only missing the experimentation phase. Shh. *T. So that's who came up with the mana poisoning solution. No wonder her servant was glaring at me. Honestly, since then Professor Romhouse has always pestered me nonstop regarding the theory. It was only after I thoroughly explained the theory behind it that he finally relented and let me be. I thought that you wanted to talk to me about something important, but it seems like I got the wrong idea about you. Let me be clear, I am not your potion salve. Standing up, Melissa prepared to leave. It was nice knowing you. Whatever you are called. Wait. Seeing her leave, I immediately tried to call for her only to be ignored. Just as she was about to open the door, I finally decided to release the bait that I had planned to use from the beginning. Oh well, it's really too bad, and here I was thinking of helping you solve Slovaki's monster energy transfer theory. Tut, 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 what a pity. Halting her steps, Melissa looked back at me. What did you say? Gritting her teeth and clenching her hands, Melissa glared in my direction only to be left speechless as I laid my feet on the table and nonchalantly picked my ear. Looking up, and seeing Melissa, I said, I thought you were leaving. Shoo, if you're leaving then just leave. You don't need to take pity on me. Seeing that I got a reaction from her, I continued with my act. With a person like her, if you didn't take the initiative then you would stand to lose more than you could gain. Waving my hand to shoo her away, I took out my phone and started a game. Bam! Smacking her hand on the table, Melissa smilingly looked at me. Well, her mouth was smiling but her eyes weren't. Oh. I thought you were leaving. I had a change of heart. Well, isn't that great? Putting my phone back in my pocket, I returned to my serious self. If I really pushed her too much, then I wouldn't even know how I died. Come, so do we have a deal? How do I know you're not lying? Squinting her eyes, Melissa once again exuded her pressure over me. To be fair, it wasn't actually that much. She was probably around the same level of strength as me at the moment, maybe I was stronger? But well, it wasn't something that I should be proud of since combat wasn't her expertise. How about this, I'll give you half of the theory beforehand and the other half once the deal is done. But what if the second half doesn't work? Rolling my eyes, I said. Do you really think I have the balls to give you some non-functioning theory? Good point. Gesturing her servant behind her, Melissa took out her tablet and started writing a contract. We soon spent the next 15 minutes agreeing on the terms of the contract. This okay? Yup, everything seems good. Looking at the contents of the contract, I nodded in satisfaction. Basically, in exchange for my research, Melissa would provide me with intermediate potions, provided that I would pay for the cost of the raw materials. The potions that she would make included stamina recovery potion, muscle recovery potion, strength enhancement potion, and so on. Potions were graded from low, mid, intermediate, high, advanced, and premium, with each grade being a major improvement on the last. Before, the potions I always used were low-leveled ones, hence why they were cheap. But now, thanks to Melissa's fine skills, I could use intermediate potions at prices far below the current market price. Then sign it. Seeing the smirk that had appeared on my face, Melissa's mouth twitched as she urged me to sign the contract. She could hope for nothing more but to wipe the smile off my face. Tapping on the tablet, a holographic paper appeared before me. Using my finger, I swiftly signed the virtual paper. All right, hold your end of the deal. Okay. Taking out a small USB from my bag, I handed it to Melissa. Inside of the USB was the first half of the Slovakia monster energy transfer theory. To summarize what it was basically a theory that proved that monster cores were created by monsters accumulating energy inside of their bodies. Though what I handed Melissa was not perfect, it had all the correct concepts and data to prove the theory. A lot of scientific terms and data were missing, but with the aid of the web I made the research somewhat presentable. Plus, a genius like Melissa could easily understand what was inferred from the paper. This theory was extremely important to Melissa and the world because if she could somehow, with the aid of theory, produce an artificial core, it would create a major scientific breakthrough. Cores would no longer be something that could only be found if someone was lucky, just the levels at which humanity would develop would drastically increase the chances of the world surviving. Well, to be honest, even though she was one step closer to her dream of creating an artificial core, she was still missing the crucial piece. But I wasn't going to help her with regards to that. If she pushed through the full theory regarding the creation of artificially created cores, then she would undoubtedly die. When she pushed this theory forward in the novel, it was already the late stages of the novel and she was strong enough to defend herself against S-ranked villains. Because of how world-shaking artificial cores were, demons did everything they possibly could to try to kill whoever was responsible for creating them. They used every means possible to eliminate any traces of this theory from existing. It was that much of a threat. If Melissa were to be subjected to this at this point in the novel, then God knows what the consequences would be. I had already taken a huge risk by giving her the Slovaki's monster energy transfer theory. Though this would have little to no impact on the story, it was better to reduce any possible liabilities. Yup. I scammed her. TCH, what did you say your name was? Randover. Randover. Repeating the name a few times, Melissa looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "Do you know what's the scary part about women?" Feeling the atmosphere become tense, I took a step back. What if I don't want to know? It's the fact that we never forget our grudges. Personally, I always pay my debt back, with interest. Gulp. Hearing her words, I involuntarily swallowed a mouthful of saliva. As I was the author, I knew she wasn't lying. If she set her mind to something, she will try to achieve it regardless of what stood in her way. I had heard the famed name of Melissa Hall, the most beautiful, charming, and generous woman in the whole academy. Oh my, would you look at that, it seems like time is tight and must go to my appointment. Let's get along with each other and not hold grudges. Pretending to look at my watch, I came up with an excuse and immediately left. Staying any longer would only spell bad news for me. Watching Ren leave, Melissa's face darkened. Arriving next to Melissa and noticing her expression, her servant asked, "Miss, do you want me to deal with him?" Thinking for a moment, she shook her head. "Forget about it, I still need my second part of the theory and it's not like I didn't benefit from this deal." Though she said that, Melissa was fuming. To actually dare take advantage of her like that. Melissa suppressed the fury rising from her heart and engraved the man's name in her head. Randover, Randover. Congratulations, you have succeeded in making me remember your name. Chapter 43, Conflicts Within the Academy 1. Pack. 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 Inside of a large spacious room, a lone figure bounced around a punching bag. His figure seemed to melt with the shadows around the room, appearing and disappearing constantly. Each time his figure emerged from the shadows, his fist would instantly connect with the punching bag, resulting in a small indentation appearing on the bag. The force of each punch was so strong that small shockwaves were released every time he hit the punching bag. If not for the fact that the material used for making the punching bag was unique, it would have already been broken a dozen times over. Huff, huff, huff. Stopping, the figure's body, which seemed to be sculpted to perfection, heavily gulped for air. Droplets of sweat dripped all over his shirtless figure, giving him a wild and manly aura. Taking a water bottle from the ground, the handsome figure took big gulps of water. Soon he exhaled in satisfaction. After drinking his fill, the figure dropped to the ground exhausted and leaned on the wall. Knock. Knock. Hearing the sound of someone knocking, the figure indifferently spoke. Come in. Soon the door opened, revealing the features of a burly individual whose hair was cut in a buzz cut. His towering figure that looked to be nearing 2 meters made him look intimidating. Young Master Jean, I heard you called me. Apathetically nodding his head, Jean slowly stood up and grabbed a towel from a nearby table. Drying his wet hair, he slowly approached Arnold, who stood with his back straight and breathing lightly, not daring to even make a sound. Bam! Arriving beside Arnold, Jean punched his stomach with all his might, causing Arnold's body to bend over as his eyes shot wide open. Guawa, GHHH, KHHH. To actually be unable to deal with a mere bug. Disdainfully looking at Arnold, Jean threw the towel that was drenched in his sweat at his face. Stand up. KHH. Holding his stomach, Arnold slowly stood up as Jean ordered. To think you would resort to such stupid tricks to harass someone that isn't even worth my notice. But. Shut up. Jin's mood was terrible. Recalling the lone figure sitting on the right side of the classroom, Jin's teeth clenched. Ren Dover. That was the name of the student that fouled his mood. Previously, he didn't really put Ren in his sight. He only knew that Arnold had a slight grudge against him, but just recently he received a certain piece of news that irked him. It told him that Melissa had granted Ren a meeting with her, and moreover, it seemed that they talked for over 10 minutes. Not even he could talk to Melissa for that long despite the fact that they were living in the same dorm. With a dark face, Jean said. I'll ask Troy to deal with him, at least he can finish the job. Hearing Troy's name being mentioned, Arnold immediately protested. Please let me. Oh. Seeing Arnold's determination, Jean couldn't help but glance at him. What makes you think you can do it after failing already? Because Kevin was the one that prevented me from finishing the mission. I guess you're right. Patting Arnold in the shoulder, Jean gloomily said. Make sure you make his life is miserable. Yes. Nodding solemnly, Arnold left the training room. Bomb. TSSHHHHH. Soon after Arnold left the room, Jean walked back to the punching machine and punched it with all his might. A large shockwave swept the room and fine granules of sand started falling from the sack as a tear appeared on it. How dare you approach Melissa? Phew, I thought I was lost. After switching buses 4 times, I finally arrived at the appointed location. A large fancy board with the words imprinted on it immediately caught my attention. Entering the cafe, instantly the heavy scent of coffee hit my nostrils. Wooden chairs and tables spread all over the cafe. A relaxed and tranquil atmosphere enveloped the place, promoting me to relax along with the atmosphere. Looking around, I soon found Small Snake. Wearing a black baseball cap and a mask, Small Snake sat in the corner of the cafe. I was easily able to find him because he was wearing exactly what he used to wear whenever he would meet Kevin. Taking note of that, I went and ordered an iced latte. After paying and receiving my latte, I headed to where Small Snake was. We had agreed beforehand that we both must order a latte beforehand in order to make sure we got the right person. Since our faces were covered, we had no idea how we looked like, so this was the easiest method.
Yo!
Comfortably sitting on the green sofa in front of Small Snake, I placed my latte down and hung my arm on the side of the sofa. Seeing me sit down, Small Snake placed his drink down and looked at me strangely. Are you wearing a face mask? Nope. Hearing my straightforward response, Small Snake sighed and shook his head. Aren't you afraid I will rat you out and keep all the money you made? Nope. I have a good eye for people and my instincts are telling me that you're not a person that would rat me out for small gains. Well, I wasn't lying when I said I had a good eye for people. Knowing my novel very well, I knew exactly what kind of person he was, it's just that he didn't need to know this part. I wouldn't really call those small gains though, you're weird. Laughing lightly, Small Snake shook his head and slowly took off his hat and mask. If you're willing to trust me that much, I might as well reciprocate. Soon his face was revealed. He had short black hair, deep green eyes, and a childish-looking face. However, despite his childish features, his demeanor was nothing but childish. He felt like someone who had gone through many ups and downs in his life. Someone that had survived many years in the most unimaginable places on Earth. I'm glad I've gained your trust. So what did you call me here for? Taking a sip of my latte, I went straight to the point. Looking around, Small Snake leaned forward and whispered. A third party is looking for my traces. The authorities? No, I've been very careful, and though the authorities are indeed trying to trace me, they are not doing it as aggressively as the other party. Leaning back on my sofa, I contemplated for a bit before saying, it should be WV Pharmaceuticals. I also thought the same, but I don't have concrete proof. No, it's them. What makes you so sure about that? Well, it's because they were the ones that ordered for Tobias Church's death. What? Abruptly standing up, Small Snake raised his voice and looked at me in disbelief. Oi, calm down. Seeing everyone staring in our direction, I lightly sighed and urged him to sit down. How do you know? Relax, I am not part of them if that's what you're thinking. Taking a sip of my latte, I stared at Small Snake, who was sitting up straight and eagerly waiting for me to continue speaking. If you want to know how I got the information, I'm sorry, but that's confidential. Even if I wanted to tell him who told me, I couldn't. It's not like I could explain to him that he was merely a side character of a world that I had created. Lightly disappointed, Small Snake said. No, I get it, but is what you said real? No, I get it, but is what you said real? 100%. Since I was the one who wrote about the event, I obviously knew who did it. W.V, the second largest company, hired Silent Creeper to kill Tobias Church. The reason why he was able to kill him without any trace was because they had planted a mole inside of C.B and made use of the mole to help Silent Creeper kill Tobias Church. The reason why they got rid of him was obvious. They wanted to be the number one. Having been overshadowed ever since opening, the higher-ups had decided they had enough. Since they couldn't defeat them legally, they resorted to killing their best researcher. What are you planning on doing with this information? Nothing. Raising his voice, Small Snake looked at me as if he was looking at an idiot. I mean, who wouldn't want to capitalize on this piece of news to make even more money? If I could prove that W.V was behind Tobias Church's death, then the stock of W.V would plummet. Moreover, with my newly acquired funds, the amount of money I would make would be frightening. First off, and more importantly, I don't have any proof. Even if I know that W.V is behind it, I can't do anything about it since I can't prove my claim. That's true. Secondly, if we do release the news about what had happened, then the pharmaceutical market will completely crash, resulting in prices for potions to increase drastically. Nodding, Small Snake thought for a bit and agreed with what I had said. Even if we did manage to release the news and prove that W.V Pharmaceuticals were guilty, it would cause total chaos in the industry, resulting in prices for potions inflating drastically. Simply put, no one wanted that. I would gain nothing from it, and quite possibly, the thought of interacting with Melissa once again to renegotiate the prices of potions sent shivers down my spine. Okay, then I better leave now. Since I know who the party is, I no longer need to worry about being discovered. All right. Standing up, I took my half-empty latte and left the cafe with Small Snake. Soon we split up. Checking my watch and seeing that I still had quite a bit of free time, I decided to roam around and see if there was anything that could catch my interest. Though the streets weren't busy, I could see people going in and out of shops everywhere. There was a single road where cars passed, and on the right and left side of the road shops filled the streets. Large billboards with beautiful ladies and handsome men could be seen everywhere as they each advertised different products. Perfume, toys, clothing, you name it, they had it all. Stopping, I looked at a large fluorescent sign. Antique shop? I wonder if they have anything interesting here. Dling. Dling. Opening the door, the bells on the door lightly tolled. Instantly a heavy scent of wood hit my nostrils, reminding me of my grandparents' house back in my previous world. It smelled funky. Welcome. Greeting me was an old man with a large gray beard and a set of white hair. Nodding in his direction, I looked around. Instantly my interest was piqued. Everything in here were things that I used to use back on Earth. Since this was the year 2055, everything was far more advanced to the things I was used to back on Earth, meaning that what I used to use was considered ancient in this day and age. In the corner of the room, I could see magazines and newspapers, consoles, and other things that I used to use. Seeing all of these things around the room caused me to feel a bit of nostalgia. Oh. As I was looking around, a certain item instantly caught my attention. Picking it up, a wide smile appeared on my face. Great choice. One of my personal favorites. Appearing behind me, the shop owner stroked his beard a couple of times as he looked at the item in my hand. How much is this? MHH, considering that the company that makes that device is no longer around, I would say 500 U. 500 U? Looking at the MP3 in my hand, a conflicted look appeared on my face. I mean, paying 500 U for an MP3 in this day and age wasn't something that any sane person would do, but I couldn't help but be tempted. This was especially so when I noticed that it came with its own wired earphones. You heard me right. Wired earphones. Before I reincarnated, my world was already starting to transition from wired earphones to wireless earbuds. To be honest, I tried wireless earbuds before, but they weren't my thing. As I loved listening to music to pass time, I bought myself some wireless earbuds in this world, but it just wasn't the same. All right, I'll buy it. Great choice. Smiling from ear to ear, the shopkeeper immediately went to the register and swiped my card. Soon after the transaction ended, I left the shop. Opening my new MP3, I was surprised with the fact that it already had its own playlist on it. Scrolling through the numerous songs, I stopped on one and put on my earbuds. Equals 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 equals. 7 Nation Army. The White Stripes. Midnight, 3:52. Plus volume. Ignoring the weird stares coming in my direction, I happily went back to the academy listening to my new MP3. Chapter 44, Conflicts Within the Academy, 2. Inside a dark and damp room, a young individual kneeled on one leg on the floor. Matriarch, the preparations are complete, the bait has been thrown. Lifting his head up, a red throne met his sight. Besides the red throne, 2 large ferocious dog-like creatures sat on the ground. Their eyes were of a deep shade of red, and their teeth were extremely sharp, causing his blood to freeze. Sitting neatly on the red thorny throne was a gorgeous woman. She was wearing a gorgeous long red dress, whose hem was beautified with marvelous drawings and patterns. Her dress was a deep shade of red and showed off her exquisite body. Her black hair gently fell all the way from her shoulders to her waist. Her red, succulent lips had a cold smile as she tapped the armchair of her throne. Good. Her enchanting voice that sounded crisp and pleasant traveled to the young individual's ears, causing him to fall into a slight daze. Looking at her, the young individual couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva as he tried his best to calm his raging heart. His eyesight slightly lingered on her gorgeous gown that emphasized her perfect figure. Her sexy figure was extremely charming that it could make any man's heart pound harder. Her bare feet, seemingly made of porcelain and flawless, further increased her sexiness. However, if not for the 2 black horns on her head, he would have mistaken her for a human. Realizing that he had been staring for too long, the young individual forcefully looked down on the ground as cold sweat dripped from his back. Though he couldn't deny that the figure before him was extremely enchanting, if by chance he got on the wrong side of her, death would be the best outcome. If it weren't for that idiot Everblood, we wouldn't have needed to push our plans this far ahead. Pouting slightly, the demoness calmly petted the 2 dogs before her. Soon silence enveloped the surroundings. Matriarch, when should we initiate the plan? Breaking the silence, the young youth spoke. Thinking for a bit, the matriarch looked at the boy before her before saying, "MHHH, let's take it slowly. Though ever blood failed, we still have some time. You should first try to capture our target." "As you wish, matriarch." Nodding his head, the young boy placed his left hand on his right pec and bowed. "Good boy." Smiling slightly, the matriarch looked at the young handsome boy before her. Elijah Turner. That was the name of the young boy before her. Though she was forced to make a pact with him due to certain circumstances, after having contracted with him for over a year, she had taken a liking to him. Though he was not very talented, he was very obedient, and she liked that a lot. Pausing slightly, the matriarch looked at the young boy as an overbearing pressure bore down on him, causing his legs to slightly falter. But I do hope you won't fail me. We can't have another setback interfering with our big plan. You understood?" Struggling to move or speak, it took the boy all his willpower to agree with the matriarch. Coo, what a cute little boy." Laughing lightly, the pressure soon disappeared and the young boy was finally able to move freely. "Here." Throwing a purple fruit at the boy who was panting heavily, the matriarch amusingly looked at him who was desperately reaching for the fruit. Thank you." Excitedly grabbing the fruit, the boy instantly devoured it. Soon black veins emerged all over his body, as he squirmed on the ground. His muscles spasmed intensely and his nails grew longer and then returned to normal. Demon fruit. That was the name of the fruit that Elijah had just consumed. Because he was not very talented. In order for him to not expose his identity, he had to consume the demon fruit. The demon fruit, previously known as the world fruit, was a fruit harvested from the world tree which used to belong to the elves. After having conquered the elves' home planet, the demons successfully managed to corrupt the world tree, turning it into the demon tree which bore fruit to the demon fruits. Upon consumption, the demon fruit allowed lower-ranked demons' bloodlines to become purer. That alone went to show how important the fruit was for the demons. With it, the demon clans managed to drastically increase their strength. Another function that the demon fruit had was that it allowed contracted humans, villains, to have a boost in talent. Moreover, it also strengthened the bond between the parties. If someone like Elijah, whose talent was on the lower end of the spectrum, consumed the fruit, then his appearance not only improved but also didn't change like it was supposed to after having made the contract. Because of the high demand and limited supply, the demon fruit was extremely sought after by the demons. The fact that they were giving it to Elijah went to show how important his mission was. "All right, you may go." "Thank you." Bowing once again, the young boy left the room. Soon after he left, a shadow materialized beside the matriarch. Because it was dark, its features were hidden, preventing anyone but the matriarch from seeing how it looked like. "Are you sure it's okay to let him do the mission alone?" Smiling lightly, the matriarch looked at where the young boy was and said, "Well, if he isn't capable of this much, he's better off dead, though it would be a problem if he died after having invested so much in him." Up. Opening the large box that had arrived early in the morning, I excitedly looked through the contents. As expected of Melissa, the box was filled with potions. Only 3 days had passed since I requested Melissa to make me the potions, and yet in that short amount of time, she managed to fulfill my request and sent me all of the potions I commissioned her to make for me. Honestly, I was impressed. Though what was less impressive was the fact that I had to fork out a total of 6 million U just for the raw materials alone. But looking at the high-quality potions in the box, the pain I felt from spending so much money instantly disappeared. Soon, I started taking out all of the potions from the box. 16 mana recovery potions, 8 strength enhancement potions, 8 stamina recovery potions, 9. Counting all the potions to make sure nothing was missing, I organized the potions in different batches, each on the type of potions they were. Because they were all transparent and only had labels with Melissa's writing. If I didn't sort them out, I could potentially consume the wrong one. Well, yes, I did in fact expect potions to have all different types of colors, but I was wrong. Reality was harsh and all potions looked like water. Moreover, they came inside of test tubes and not some fancy flask like in games. Scam, I say. After sorting out the potions and making sure nothing was missing, I stood up and prepared to attend classes. Though I couldn't wait to try a potion right now, I could only hold my impulse back and go to class. When taking a potion, if one wasn't focusing enough, then they might hurt themselves. That's why it was better for me to consume them once I had time to spare. What am I missing? Looking around the room, I noticed my MP3 on my desk and immediately took it with me. These past few days I had cemented my position as the weirdo in the class. Not only did the way I trained look ridiculous to everyone in the class, including teachers, but I also had no friends. A month in, and everyone in the class had pretty much formed their own clique or had at least one friend, yet I didn't even have a person to talk to, let alone call an acquaintance. I was a total antisocial loner in the eyes of everyone in my class. To make matters worse, now that I was using an ancient-looking device accompanied by wired earphones, which had gone extinct since 3 decades ago, my position as the class weirdo became as stable as Mount Tai. Honestly, I wasn't too sure how to feel about this. To me, I looked absolutely normal, but well, I couldn't just go to them and tell them I reincarnated into a novel and back in my previous world this was normal, could I? Sighing at my miserable life, I took the keys and made my way to the door. Click! Closing the door to my room, I put my earphones on and hurried my steps. Couldn't afford to be late, else I could kiss graduating.
Goodbye.
Today's class lecture had ended later than usual, and after being subjected to Donna's cold treatment I was finally able to free myself from class. Though I could barely feel my legs, I still had to drag my body to my elective class. After the elective was over, I had to do my daily workout. Just thinking about that made me depressed. If I knew this would happen, I would have asked Melissa to make more stamina enhancement potions. My shoes had already started wearing out from how much I was overworking myself. In any case, I was currently heading to the elective clubroom. Perhaps because I tended to have bad luck when meeting the main characters, but Amanda was walking a few meters ahead of me. Being behind her I could instantly catch a whiff of her rose-like scent. It was a bit of an awkward walk as we were heading in the same direction without speaking to each other. From another person's point of view, it would have looked like I was stalking her. I mean, she was stunning. Fortunately, we soon arrived inside the classroom and sat in the same seats as we did in the previous class. By the time we arrived, Elijah Turner, the club president, was already standing on the podium going through some papers. Carefully flipping the pages, he seemed to be organizing today's lecture notes. Not long after, the room was filled to the brim as the rest of the students entered the class. However, contrary to the previous class where everyone sat wherever they wanted, today's class was separated into 3 different groups, first, second and third years. It seems like the relationship between juniors and seniors was starting to get progressively sour with each passing day. I thought as I looked at how the first years were being avoided by the senior years. At 8 on the dot, Elijah began his lecture. Good afternoon, everyone. It seems like a lot of you.
Ha!
As he talked, most of the stuff coming from his mouth went into one ear and left from the other. I couldn't be bothered to pay attention to his idle chatter. Fortunately, I had learned my lesson and held my yawn back. Though the fact that tears started streaming from my cheeks after 10 minutes didn't help me hide the fact that I wanted to yawn. Today we will talk about the plant kingdom. As most of you know, once mana entered our planet, not only did we and beasts evolved, but plants did too. Essentially all living beings on this planet started to evolve, though most plants have no sentience. Don't look down on plants, as some of them evolved into terrifying things that even SS-ranked heroes would want to avoid at all costs. For example, if we look at some of the most powerful plants out there, the tree ants, they had evolved from regular trees to a rank monsters that when in groups could cause trouble to some of the most experienced heroes out there. This goes to. Though I knew most of the stuff, I still paid attention to it as it wasn't as detailed as the information that Elijah was teaching. Have you guys understood? Looking around the class, Elijah repeatedly asked questions to every student to make sure they were paying attention. Looking around and seeing that everyone nodded, Elijah smiled in satisfaction and said, "All right then, I guess it's time we call it quits for today." The lecture had lasted a total of 1 hour. Unexpectedly, there was a lot to learn, like the weakness of some plants, which areas to avoid, and the difference between physical plants and non-physical plants, e.g., ones that attack directly and the ones that used poison. I learned in detail about things I had neglected to explain in my novel, all the while I watched cute female students throwing flirtatious glances at Elijah. Rejoicing at the fact that I no longer had to listen to him, I prepared to leave the class, but before I could leave I heard his voice addressing the whole class. "If anyone is interested, since today is our first lecture, I will be hosting an after party. It'll be great if you can come." This wasn't in the novel. There was no such thing as an after party in the novel at this point in time. Amanda is not rejecting it? Amanda, who was usually indifferent to everything, nodded at Elijah and verbally confirmed her participation. What's going on? Wasn't she supposed to be indifferent to everything? What happened? As I was looking at Amanda with a stupefied look, I didn't notice that 2 eyes were sharply looking in my direction. By the time I noticed, I found Elijah standing 2 meters away from me, smiling. "Student, are you interested in joining us?" Sure. Great, we will be leaving in an hour, so make sure you go back to your dorm and get ready. Smiling, Elijah turned around and talked to the other students. To be honest, I agreed to join them on an impulse as I was starting to get worried for Amanda. A scenario that had never happened in the novel was starting right now. I have a feeling that as of today my peaceful low-key life was going to take a turn for the worst. Chapter 45, A Not-So-Joyous After-Party 1. After finishing her last class, food exploration, Amanda went back to her room. Along the way, people would try to strike a conversation with her, but she promptly ignored them. Arriving in her room, the first thing she did was sit on her sofa and pick up a book. Since she had about an hour to pass, in order to pass time, she decided to do the only thing she could think of. Read a book. Only when reading a book did she feel a sense of belonging. Amanda's family circumstances were a bit special. Her father, Edward Stern, Guild Master of the Demon Hunter Guild and Hero Rank 25, Frost of Remorse, was rarely home. Her real mother left when she was 2. She couldn't handle all the pressure that came from being the wife of such an important figure. The only memory Amanda had of her was her lonely silhouette walking down a long road as heavy rain poured from the sky. That was the day she left their home. Amanda wanted to reach out for her, but not once did the figure ever turn back to look at her. That memory was forever etched deep inside of the young Amanda. Because of that, ever since she was 2, she was raised by her father and her nanny. That being said, due to the nature of her father's work, he would rarely be able to come back on time to spend time with her. Whenever he did have time, Amanda remembered him rubbing her head with his large warm hand. Too bad those moments only lasted a couple of seconds. In the end, the person that raised her was her nanny. She would often tell her stories and fairy tales of princesses getting kidnapped to later get saved by a charming white prince. She too wanted to be a princess. Back then, Amanda didn't really understand what princesses went through when they get kidnapped. But later on in her life, she did. The first time she was kidnapped, she was 7 years old. At the time, she only remembered hearing voices. Her vision was obstructed. Tight rope tangled both her arms and legs. She was scared. A large gag was placed in her mouth, preventing her from screaming. Fortunately, her father came and saved her. Then it happened again. And again. And again. Slowly, Amanda found herself losing her emotions. Her natural childish smile disappeared the more she got kidnapped. She was slowly maturing. However, she was still able to smile when her nanny narrated fairy tales to her. Those were the only times she felt safe and at peace. Sucked in another world. Almost as if escaping reality. That was until she was 11. That was the age at which her nanny passed away, ridding of the last warmth in her heart. Since then, Amanda has never been able to smile. Even when kidnapped, she felt nothing. Everything around her became black and white. Slowly the expectations she had of the people around her vanished. I won't get angry, I won't be sad, I won't expect anything from anyone, was what she repeatedly told herself as she shut herself in a box. It was from that point on that she decided not to form any relationships that weren't necessary. Even if they had the best interest for her, even if they treated her well, her heart was unmovable. Closing down the book she was reading, Amanda stood up and looked at the reflection in the mirror. Her long black hair that was no longer held by a pin, gently fell on her shoulders, reaching all the way to her waist. Her deep phoenix-like eyes had a cold indifference to them that made people feel like she was a holy existence that was unreachable for regular people. Her appearance was so exquisite that it could move anyone's heart regardless of their gender, but it also gave people a gloomy feeling. Placing her fingers on the edge of her lips, she lightly pulled the edges of her mouth in the form of a smile. Letting go, the edges of her mouth quickly reverted to their regular aloof position. She repeated this a couple more times, but, no matter how much she tried, she couldn't smile. Walking towards her closet, Amanda took a beautiful black dress with finely decorated silver patterns. Although she usually disliked attending parties, Amanda chose to attend this one. That was because back in the first lecture she received a mysterious box from the club president, Elijah Turner. At first, she thought nothing of it as she was used to these kinds of things, but, once she opened the box she was shocked. Inside the box was a picture of her mom. She looked almost identical to her, and if not for the wrinkles at the edge of her eyes, people could have easily mistaken her for her sister. Though she barely had any memories of her mother, Amanda couldn't stop herself from wanting to know more about the whereabouts of her mother. She wanted to know why she had abandoned her and never visited in all the years since she had left. Since Elijah was the one that had provided her with the picture, Amanda had no choice but to look for him, and thus decided to attend the party. Wearing the beautiful dress and looking at herself in the mirror for a couple of seconds, Amanda took a small black purse and headed out. Click! Closing the door behind her, Amanda went towards the appointed location with a mind full of questions. Should I wear a suit or normal clothes? Right now I was torn on what to wear to the after party. As I never attended these kinds of events before, I wasn't too sure about what to wear. A suit or casual clothes? Ugh. Honestly, if it wasn't because this situation caught me off guard, I wouldn't have chosen to attend this kind of event. After a while, I decided to do a bit of both. I wore a white iron t-shirt accompanied by blue jeans. Looking at myself in the mirror, I couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. After having transmigrated to this world for over a month, my originally skinny body had started to bulk up. Though my body wasn't sculpted like a god, I had a fairly good body. My short black hair, which was nicely styled, accompanied by the deep blue eyes, made me nod in satisfaction. I looked fairly handsome. After looking at myself a couple of more times, I looked at the time and found that I only had 10 minutes left before the meeting time. As I was rushing to the door, my footsteps halted and my eyesight landed in the corner of my room where a black sword rested against the wall. After pondering for a bit, I took the black sword and placed it in my dimensional bracelet. I hope the situation doesn't get to the point where I have to use my sword. Though I said this, I already started preparing myself for the worst. The situation was already starting to get out of my control, and right now, for the first time, I was going into a situation without any knowledge of what was to come. Click. Taking my room keys and turning off the lights, I left my room. Cheers. Inside of a spacious, luxurious room, a flock of students could be seen drinking and laughing. The interior of the room was very well decorated with fancy paintings scattered all over the room. Large white sofas with fine golden patterns on the sides sat in the middle of the room. Large wooden tables that were filled with food and beverages stood in the corner of the room. The location we were currently at was a rather well-known restaurant called Le Ferret. It was a fairly luxurious restaurant with celebrities often showing up here. Due to its popularity, it was fairly obvious that this place was expensive, and somehow Elijah had managed to book a whole room just for the gathering. This pretty much impressed everyone that came, as their eyes were shining stars, especially the girls. Twirling the cup of wine in my hand, I lightly smelled the wine. It had a fruity yet overbearing smell that made my nose twitch a couple of times. Just how I like it. Though it may seem like this wine was one that I took from the table, in fact, it wasn't. The wine I was currently tasting was one that I brought with me. It's not that I disliked the wine here, but there was a high chance all the foods and drinks in the part were drugged beforehand. Though I was being somewhat paranoid, it was better to be safe than sorry. The reason why I was drinking it was so that I could blend with the crowd. If I didn't drink it, in the event that there was an ambush, there was a high chance I would be among the first who were targeted. Taking a small sip of the wine, I smacked my lips a couple of times before looking at my surroundings. Though the atmosphere was calm and everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves, I couldn't help but feel tense. There was this ominous vibe shrouding the whole venue. Something was definitely going to happen today, and it wasn't going to be something good. In the middle of the hall, Elijah, who wore an elegant white suit, was currently being flooded by multiple girls at a time. They were pushing and shoving each other aside to get a chance to talk to him. Elijah, who was being surrounded and harassed by the girls, kept a gentle smile on his face throughout the whole time. Besides him, a couple of boys were looking at him with envious and jealous eyes. But that was in the minority, as most of the boys were busy admiring a different scene. Standing on the balcony, Amanda, who looked like a goddess that had just descended on the world, was currently looking at the moon with a glass of wine in her hand. The gentle moonlight enveloped her perfect figure, creating this sort of picture-like scene. A couple of boys tried approaching her, but once they noticed that they were being ignored, they could only helplessly go back to the party in defeat. Seeing this scene, my lips slightly curled and I helplessly shook my head. Boys will be boys. Walking to the balcony, where Amanda was standing, I could hear faint whispers coming in my direction. Here goes the fifth one. How long will you give it? I say 5 seconds. No, I say 10. Since my stats had improved, so did my hearing. Listening to their whispers, my eyes couldn't help but roll. Just how much time did they have on their hands? Opening the door to the balcony, I slowly walked to the edge of the balcony and stood next to Amanda. Lifting my head up, I looked at the moon. Though I did not want to interact with her nor any of the main characters, I couldn't help but do so this time. If something were to happen to her, then chances were that the storyline was going to change and all the advantages I had would simply crumble overnight. Simply put, I couldn't afford that. Thus I decided to expose myself and warn her about the upcoming danger. Taking a sip of my wine, without glancing at Amanda, I lightly said, "You should be careful tonight." As if she didn't hear me, Amanda kept staring at the moonlight. Seeing her react like that, I didn't panic nor express my displeasure, as I already knew her character. Though she was pretending to be indifferent, she definitely heard me loud and clear. It's just that she didn't show it on her face. Slightly smiling, I said one last thing before walking back to the party. Something might happen tonight, and you might be the target. No, you're most likely the target. Finally turning her head to the side, Amanda saw my figure leaving the balcony. Seeing my figure leave, her brows knit for a split second before relaxing. Soon after, almost as if nothing happened, she started looking at the moon again. Turning my head and seeing that, I lightly smiled before heading back to my previous spot. Though it seemed like she didn't take my warning seriously, I in fact knew that she had upped her guard. Having been in these types of situations since a very young age, she knew that even if this was just a small prank, there was a chance that the warning was real. For her, even if it was a prank, it was better to be prepared than unprepared. In the off chance that what I had said turned out to be true, she could avoid being kidnapped again.